This is Monty in the Morning, the show Phoenix Magazine readers voted #1 talk radio show in Arizona.
#1 during your morning commute.
#1 whenever news breaks during your day.
And #1 whenever and wherever you want to talk sports.
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
Hey, yo, man. Happy Monday, February 27th, as I which is on the verge of death and destruction. How the heck are you? A lot to get to today on the show. Have the Seattle Seahawks made a Russell Wilson decision? Do we know where Deshaun Watson finna go?
Deshaun.
There was a talk show host this weekend on the radio calling him Deshaun.
Bro, it's Deshaun.
It's Deshaun Watson. Maybe you've heard of him.
Deshaun?
Yes, Deshaun Watson.
Bro.
On a national satellite radio network.
Dude.
Calling him on the NFL Network channel, Deshaun.
Deshaun?
It was quite comical, and then they came back and he called him Deshaun. So somebody was like, hey, it's Deshaun. Anyway, how the heck are you? Thanks for hitting the subscribe button on YouTube. Always appreciate your support. Channel is growing unbelievably. Without you, we couldn't do this show every day. So anytime, any place, anywhere you want to find the Monty Show, specifically on YouTube, hit subscribe. Just get on Google and search The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show. We got that SEO thing on lockdown, MFers. So go ahead and hit that. Hey, I want to go right to Utah Jazz because really it's NBA. But I want to talk Utah Jazz on the show again because anytime I'm right, and anytime I can hold the claim to fame that I'm better looking than you, that's a good thing.
Right, yeah.
The Jazz went to L.A. and won the first game of a back-to-back against the Clips. And I think a lot of people got excited. Hey, this is the best team in the NBA, which
Twitter's
they are.
Twitter's been going crazy.
Yeah, Twitter's been going
Twitter's
crazy.
lit.
Right? They're the best team in the NBA, and I think they still are. Don't get me wrong. With AD being hurt, with Paul George and his swollen bone marrow.
Bro.
Gross. They were the best team in the NBA, are the best team in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Freudian slip, my bad. They go to LA to play the Clippers. They win game 1. They lose game 2. And boy, if you're a Utah Jazz fan, Jake, aren't you terrified right now?
Yeah, well, I think the thing here is that in game 2, we actually had a matchup of two fully healthy teams that were just going head-to-head. You know, the Clippers had their guys. Obviously, the Jazz had their full suite of a roster. So, you know, they went back and forth. And I think the thing that we learned in this game is that, you know, the Utah Jazz get put in positions that are not advantageous for them on the defensive end and with Rudy Gobert. And what I mean by that is teams like the Clippers or let's say the Lakers or let's say the Brooklyn Nets or any of these upper echelon teams in the league who are going to contend for a championship, they're not just simply coming down the floor and running their offense, right?
Right.
They're saying, okay, we know where the weak point is on this Jazz team, and we're going to exploit it. And that's exactly what they did and why they were able to win the game against the Jazz. They took Rudy out of the paint, they put him in the pick and roll, and they started getting high percentage looks. And I think if you're the Jazz, this is a real conundrum because there's not an easy answer to fix. How exactly do the Jazz play against small teams?
No, there isn't. And I think the thing that should really scare you is the last 5 minutes of this game. Rudy Gobert was in this game, and I can only tell you how awesome I am, you know, so many times before you catch my drift. My biggest concern with Rudy Gobert and his $9 trillion contract, it's actually only $200 million total. $41 million a year. The biggest problem I have with that contract is that Rudy Gobert is a liability in the last 5 minutes. And you would have laughed at me if I'd have told you that 2 years ago. The league has dramatically changed. And I look at the way that the Clippers exposed Rudy Gobert, which is they put him in pick and roll, where the switch was Rudy Gobert to Patrick Beverley. It happened 3 straight trips. 2 of those 3, Patrick Beverley hit a jump shot.
Yep.
And the third was a 3 out of the corner that pretty much sealed the game.
Yeah.
And you could see the frustration on, you know, Donovan Mitchell's face because he knew what was coming.
Yeah. It's not a secret.
No, it's not rocket science. on how teams are attacking the Jazz. They're going small. Even when you didn't have PG and Kawhi Leonard playing the other night, they went small, and you had Lou Williams. You had, look at the Philly game.
Yeah.
The Jazz fans are like, oh, you're ridiculous. They didn't get it. I'm telling you, when you go small and you attack the Jazz in the paint, it makes life on Rudy Gobert very difficult, and I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is very risky to have Rudy Gobert in the game in the last 5 minutes of a tight contest where, especially if you're trailing, you cannot have him in the game. No. And we were talking about this as well. Who's the other guy who was an absolute zero against the Clippers? Royce O'Neal. And why? Because the Clippers push out to the three-point line. They don't have issues guarding the three-point line, and what inevitably happens is Royce O'Neal gets very limited. He gets very isolated. So where's Royce O'Neal in the last 5 minutes of the game? He's on the bench. Shockingly, where was Jordan Clarkson for long stretches in the fourth quarter?
I don't know.
On the bench. I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, and this is why I say, I think that the Jazz I know they're a top 4 team in the Western Conference, but I have some concerns about where do they actually fall against these top teams? Where do, if they're playing the Lakers and the Clippers and the Nuggets, how does that work out? I don't know if anybody saw late last week Jamal Murray go off for a 50 spot, and he's been hot. And then Jokic put up 50 last week too. So that's a team that's trouble. The Lakers, when they're fully healthy, are going to be trouble. If, again, assuming that AD comes back and they're fully healthy, they would be trouble. So I'm not saying that the world ended on Friday for the Jazz. No, certainly not. But what I am saying is that the Jazz need to quickly figure out what they're going to do to play defense on their terms and not the offense's terms, because that is the one weak point of this team. If you're an offense playing their defense, you can play on your terms, and that's always dangerous.
That's exactly right. And I think the Jazz are a very good team. But if we're going to talk about the hierarchy of the Western Conference, because I just don't see a team in the East. Brooklyn is good. I don't think Brooklyn's elite. And I know that's crazy talk coming off of that win last night in L.A. Totally get it. I'm telling you, Brooklyn's a flawed team, especially when all three of those guys are playing. There was a conversation about, James Harden and Kyrie Irving getting together. And, hey, you're going to be the point guard, I'm going to be the two. But I thought Jeff Van Gundy made a really good point on ESPN last night. You're going to ask Steve Nash? Who's running that team? And what I'm telling you is, anytime the players are fully in charge of a team, you're in trouble. And I think they're going to have trouble playing at this level when Kevin Durant gets back. Because I think sharing the ball on that team is always going to be an issue. James Harden needs to be, at all times, Durant or not, James Harden needs to be the number one option. Yeah. He's the best player on that team. And I look at Kyrie Irving, and I look at the way Kyrie Irving was playing last night without the ball, and he really wasn't playing without the ball. Who made him last night? James Harden did. Yeah. There was a layup that Kyrie got under the basket. Where was he before that pass came in? Standing out of bounds watching the play. And then he saw a moment, and he hopped back in. Yeah. You look at the way this Brooklyn Nets team plays, the biggest concern I have is their ability to share the ball when KD gets back.
Yeah, I think that I think that's a great problem to have, number one. Number two, I think that James Harden deserves a ton of credit. If you'd asked me in the prime years of James Harden as a Rocket, if he could ever be a facilitating guy, a triple-double guy, I never would have said yes, because that's just never who he's been. But I think, with the Nets, he's turned into something else now. I mean, he's just a better player.
Oh, he's earned a lot more respect.
Yeah.
He is, and this is a talking point around the NBA, the way that he has morphed his game and his attitude to fit into what Brooklyn needs from him.
Yeah.
Is remarkable.
Yeah.
Because he's been an alpha male. He's been a top dog everywhere he's been.
Yeah.
And he went to Houston and he became one of the best scorers in the NBA. And now he's become by far the best assist man in the NBA, which brings me to my next point about the Jazz. Is you look at the elite teams. Sure, put Brooklyn there. I think Brooklyn's good, not great. I think they're good, not great. But we can agree to disagree on that.
Either way, yeah.
You look at the Lakers, without Anthony Davis, they're good. They're not great.
Yeah.
the Clippers, they have odd character flaws. And am I the only one who thinks it's weird to stare at Steve Ballmer's crotch when he's flailing his legs all over the place? Because I do feel like it's odd that Steve Ballmer sits in a folding chair underneath the basket and waves his legs around like he's having a seizure. And
I say I'm just fired up to be here today.
He's a 12-year-old kid, dude. Like, what are you doing?
I'm pumped.
Well, sit courtside, bro. Why are you sitting under the basket?
Yeah, I don't know why he's sitting
Literally
baseline.
waving your crotch in everybody's face.
We're only here for one reason.
Yeah, to look at your crotch, you dick. Like, I don't need to see it. Like, I'm serious. I don't need to see it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, the point is, I think even when the Clippers are healthy, they're good, not great. Because they go through these stretches where all of a sudden they
offense just stops.
They don't function.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at, they're another team that to be their best has to play small, which gives them a huge advantage. Because when Lou Williams and Pat Bev are in the game with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, dude, you're in for a real handful with them.
Yeah.
And then you got to figure out, well, okay, what are we going to do at center? Right? Like, who's the best center on the LA Clippers right now?
Zubats.
It's
He's
probably
not a center.
He's not physically tough.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know how you overcome that, because Morris he's so valuable, but then he just disappears. Like, look at the threes he hit against the Jazz.
Yeah.
He hit some big shots against the Jazz.
Yeah.
What did he do last night? Mm-hmm. Not much. Like, he wasn't. I just look at a lot of the situations in that game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who is this Clipper team? But when they played the Jazz the other night, they played really well. So is that a Jazz issue or is that a Clipper issue?
Well, I think it's, I don't know. I think you can make a case both ways, but here's what I would say about the Clippers. I think that the Clippers are a team that has to play small to get the optimal result for their squad, and I think that playing small is no longer a foreign thing in the league, and that's why I say that the Jazz are a team that is far over exceeding what their roster should be able to put out. You know, they're a team that is like they're a team that it should be like on this level. And because they're coached so well and because they have such heady players, they're able to reach for the sky and be up here. But at some point in the NBA, I'm telling you that talent does matter. It matters that the Clippers have PG and Kawhi and Lou Williams and all these guys that can just straight up score.
But is Serge Ibaka a real factor on that team?
He will be when they play the Jazz, yeah.
Yeah, well, and he was. But where is Serge Ibaka at the end of the game? Not in the game.
Yeah.
They have the ability to go small, and I think that's when Morris becomes a real factor for them. But, I also look at, the assist thing that I was talking about a minute ago. The Jazz are near the bottom of the NBA. They're 23rd in team assists per game. That's a real telling stat. And the reason that stat matters so much is because when you look at the way the Jazz play, they want to shoot a lot of threes. But I will continue to tell you, there is a tipping point where it becomes a drag on an offense when you shoot so many threes. Because, again, it makes Rudy Gobert, it makes him a non-factor on offense. When you have a team, again, I'll just use the Clippers because of what we saw against the Jazz.
Yeah.
The Clippers were able to outmaneuver the Utah Jazz on the rebounds.
See Kawhi Leonard getting rebounds late.
Yeah, absolutely, positively outmaneuvered them. And I know it's one game, but looking up and down the box in that game, the one thing that really stands out to you is that Rudy Gobert was not a huge factor in that game in any way, shape, or form.
And I do think a lot of people in response to that would say, well, a lot of the stuff he does doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and there's a lot of intangibles. But at the same time, I also kind of disagree with that, because I think in a big game like that against the Clippers, or just again, and I know we bring this up every time, but think about them in a 7-game series against the Nuggets or the Clippers or the Lakers or any of these teams that we always talk about with the Jazz. What does that look like for Rudy over that kind of a series?
It's difficult because what are the LA Clippers? And I'll put it this way. What are the Clippers? I would certainly say the Lakers. I would certainly say the Brooklyn Nets.
Mm-hmm.
Think about those three teams.
Yeah.
What do those three teams have in common? Their guards are exceptional rebounders.
And they have a lot of flexibility with what they can do
Yeah.
on their roster.
Because their guards are exceptional rebounders.
Yeah.
It's why the Clippers out-rebounded the Jazz.
Yeah.
Because you look at the guard rebound numbers that night, Paul George with 6 boards. Bev had 2. You look at Kawhi Leonard with 4. You look at, with 5 rebounds. You look at Paul George with 6 rebounds. You look at Pat Bev with 2. You look at the fact that you get 8 from Zubac, you get 9 from Ibaka, which you expect.
Right.
But if you look at the guard rebound numbers for the Jazz, it's not great. It's Mike Conley playing 25 minutes, getting 0 rebounds. It's Donovan Mitchell with 4. It's Bogdanovich, only 2 rebounds. You have to get your guard play. And really, with Bogdanovich, the problem is he's not an interior player. He's really good at the basket, finishing at the basket, but he would much rather be at the three-point line.
He's not a gritty guy.
No, not at all. And I think one of the things that you're going to have to fight on this team is that you have a bunch of guys at the top of the conference who rebound well.
Yeah.
And so if you go back to the assist numbers, where are those assists going to come from? When you're 23rd in the NBA in team assists per game, if you're the Jazz, you have to take your exceptional ball movement because they move the ball exceptionally well.
Yeah.
But it's all to get a three-point shot because you don't have interior players that score well.
And again, I want to keep bringing this up. What happens to the Jazz if they don't shoot well in any particular game in a series?
They lose. They will lose.
Yeah.
They will lose. And you know what? Oh, Gesundheit.
Well, that was random.
Yeah, it was. But my point is, the Jazz, I think, today are still the best team in the NBA.
Yeah.
One loss to the LA Clippers does not mean that this is not an elite basketball team. What it means is they've got to find effective bigs. And I know that Jazz fans freaked the F out on YouTube last week when I said this. They need to make a trade. They need to go and get somebody who can effectively give them scoring in the paint. And I don't know if that's a power forward. I don't know.
But what do you say? What do you say to people or Jazz fans, not people, Jazz fans who say that Rudy is giving them that? Because you usually, most nights he's somewhere between 17 and 20 points.
Right, but that's because most nights this is the haves and the have-nots in the NBA. Mm-hmm. There are very few haves. Right? Again, not to be redundant. The Bucks are not an elite team. This is something I think people have to grasp. The Bucks are not elite. The Sixers without Joel Embiid are not elite.
But those teams win when they can out-athlete you, and that's why they win a lot. But
True.
in postseason time, that's when they struggle.
But they can't out-athlete the Jazz on most nights.
Right.
Because the Jazz have exceptional
athleticism.
Yeah. They really do.
Yeah.
But what the Jazz can't do is count on half-court offense to win them a game. They need – how many times are we going to see the Jazz pull up for 3 on the break? Because it happened in L.A. the other night with Bogdanovich.
Yeah.
We saw it the other night with Clarkson. They love doing that. And I'm okay with that. But you better understand against elite teams, you better be able to play. Somebody better be able to play with their back to the basket.
Yeah, and I think against elite teams, you're not going to get the transition game because they're not elite teams. And again, this is just another factor, but elite teams don't just settle for threes. They don't. They do not. And again, I'm not saying the Jazz are where the Rockets were against the Warriors in the postseason, right? If you remember, Harden going 0 for 27 and the Rockets essentially lose the series because of that. I don't think the Jazz are in that bad of a place where the Rockets were, because essentially that's all the Rockets did. The Rockets didn't even have a big who could even do anything for them.
No.
At least the Jazz have that. But I think the Jazz are a team that just don't have a lot of half-court offense options. And yeah, they have good ball movement from time to time. They do make Sports Center for their ball movement on occasion. But at the same time, I'm just telling you, against these talented defensive teams who understand how to play great team defense, the Jazz are going to have a big fight on their hands in terms of getting past these teams. And I have big concerns about that.
Wait until clutch time. Wait until it really matters. Rudy Gobert will be there when the Jazz need him most. But when do the Jazz need him most?
Was he there last year? Was he there last year?
Yeah.
In the bubble?
No. Like, anyway.
What does that look like, though? But seriously, what does that look like? If whoever said that, like,
Will said that.
Wait until clutch time. Jazz or Rudy will be there. Well, what do you mean clutch time? Like, is that not one of the biggest games of the year the other night against the Clippers?
I don't know. And I'm just telling you, you need to go and make a deal. You have to go and get somebody. You look at teams that are.
What does a great game for Rudy look like? What does him showing up look like?
2020.
I would agree.
2015. 2015 is a great game, but that's just not who he is against elite teams, because he's not going to get. You're not going to get clean up garbage time baskets late in games against elite teams.
Yeah,
because you're going to be in the corner guarding Pat Beverley. And if you're not, he's going to hit an open three. Because you talk about ball movement and you talk about elite basketball, that's what we saw from the Clippers. Hell, they lost to Brooklyn, and I think they did some really good things.
Yeah.
They lost to Brooklyn because Paul George couldn't play the last 7 minutes.
For whatever reason.
Well, it was a minutes restriction.
Yeah,
they
whatever,
said.
dude.
But it is February. It's not March or April. And he's coming off of a really bad bone bruise in his toe.
They win that game if he plays.
They
Just
do.
telling you.
He played exceptionally well last night. But I agree. What is losing to Brooklyn in February mean?
So let me ask you this then: if we're going to say that about the Clippers losing to Brooklyn, then some Jazz fans would be like, oh, well, then this loss to the Clippers doesn't matter for the Jazz. You know?
But you know why it matters more? Because of the way you won on, what was that, Wednesday night? And the way you lost on Friday night. Mm-hmm. Because, and I need to go back and look at his numbers. Rudy had a big game the other night.
He did.
23-20.
Big game.
And they beat the Clippers.
And who didn't play?
Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
And that's where you see the difference in rebounding, right?
Exactly.
Because again, you know, when you look, and it's funny with COVID and the way the NBA season works out now, and you have all these back-to-backs and, like, you know, playing teams multiple times in a row versus just, you know, being in Portland, then being in Sacramento, then being in LA, like, you know, just going around the country.
Yeah.
You know, playing these teams back-to-back, it allows us to see the contrast and the difference in one night versus the other. And literally that is the difference. You see on the second game, you've got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard rebounding the hell out of the ball, scoring the ball really well, leading the offense like they always do. But then in the first game, they weren't there, so Rudy had a big game. And I'm just telling you, in the postseason, the second game is much more accurate to what we will see.
Yes, I agree 100%. Casey Finlinson, good morning to you. He says, do the Jazz trade for a scoring big, or do they get another scorer on the wing? The Jazz won't trade for someone to replace Rudy, but should get someone to replace Favors off the bench. Well, that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
Because you can't trade Rudy now, right? With this new contract and the restrictions, you're not able to trade him. But I think if you look at the bigs in this league that are having real success, it's a guy like Julius Randle who had another huge night last night.
Mm-hmm. Man, if they had Julius Randle,
but he can do both. He can shoot the three and he can play with his back to the basket.
Mm-hmm.
I look at guys that are really even Serge Ibaka is able to shoot threes on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid has a great jumper. I look at the bigs in this league now, and we see this more and more and more. It's why Milwaukee's not elite. Mm-hmm. Why is Milwaukee not elite?
Because Giannis can't shoot.
Because Giannis will run you off from the half-court line. Hey, that's cool. In the last 7 to 10 minutes against Milwaukee, you're just not going to guard him at the three-point line.
And that's exactly what the Jazz did.
They beat him. Because he can't beat you.
Yeah.
He cannot beat you. It is... Anyway, we could go on and on about this. What the Jazz need is they need somebody who can consistently finish in the paint. In clutch time, who can get theirs. They need a Bradley Beal. They need like Julius Randle's a great fit for them.
Yeah.
Now they're not going to make a trade like that.
No,
they're not.
That's just not who they are, and that's a disappointing part. Because I feel like if they were to get a Bradley Beal or a Julius or something, now you're a legit title contender. Now you've got everything you need with your roster. You've checked every single box. You can play however you want, depending on what the other team is giving you, and that's what you really have to be a title contender. Think about it. The reason LeBron went to 10 straight finals is because his teams could play whatever style they needed to play based on who they were playing. Oh, I need to run a bunch? Okay, great, let's run. Oh, I need to slow the Warriors offense down so we can get back into this game. Great, we're going to do that.
Yes.
You know? And the Jazz don't have that ability right now. So yes, I wish they would go out and make a trade, but I would be surprised.
Because there are bigs available. I mean, there's a lot of people who feel like the Timberwolves are going to tear it down. They fired Ryan Saunders. And I do think that they're going to wind up trading Karl Anthony Towns. I think at some point, you have to move on to move on. Right?
Yep.
And understand what that means. If you are a team like, what do the Knicks have to gain by keeping Julius Randle?
Nothing.
Nothing. They need to add younger developmental pieces.
Yeah, you got to move him to get more value for the future.
Absolutely. What do the T-Wolves have by keeping Karl Anthony Towns? Well, you tried. You went in and got D'Angelo, who got hurt again. And you have Karl Anthony Towns, who's a hell of a player. When he's on a good team, I think he could once again be the best big in the NBA.
But I don't think him and Rudy could coexist. I think that would have to be...
No, but my point is you have bigs that are available.
Yeah.
But you are landlocked at center or at that 5 position.
5-4 position, yeah.
Yet because of Rudy Gobert's contract. And there is no, I don't see any way they would trade a Bogdanovich. I really don't. If you told me today you could have Bradley Beal, but you got to give up Bogdanovich, okay,
right,
cool.
we'll
Where
see
do
you
I
later,
sign?
bud. We'll see
Where
you
do
later.
I sign?
Yep.
Right? Like I'm out.
Yep.
I'm doing it. If I could, I don't know. Do you trade Bogdanovich to get a Julius Randle? Probably not. Because now you've changed your entire style of play.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think you still have a good amount of 3-point shooting. You know, yeah, Bogdanovich is one of their...
I think he's critical to their 3-point game. I mean, he's absolutely critical.
Yeah.
So it works if you swap Bradley Beal for Bogdanovich.
If you get Bradley Beal, then Joe Ingles is the one sitting in the corner.
I think Joe Ingles is a guy that they would move. I do. But that's one of those soul-crushing trades for Jazz fans. You know, like Jingles, he's our guy. It's a cool story.
Bogey.
You know, but I think Bogdanovich is a middle-tier player. I think Joe Ingles is a role player.
Yeah.
On most other teams, he's a role player. And so you kind of have to weigh the options. But
and this is why their roster can be a bit frustrating because you have this collection of role players essentially. Because think about it, like on any of the obvious championship contending teams, yeah, Joe Ingles would be a role player, but on this team he's a borderline starter, you know. And so I don't know, man. It's just frustrating. I wish Donovan Mitchell needs somebody who can actually contribute. Donovan Mitchell needs somebody on the wing, on the perimeter, who can actually go out and score. So it's not him like all the time.
Well,
this is the Devin Booker problem in Phoenix on some level. The problem is that, and we've seen this being cured with the Chris Paul trade, but Devin Booker was the only guy you had to fear in Phoenix for like the first 5 years of his career, or whatever, the first 3 to 5 years. And so now you've got Chris Paul, and Chris Paul can pull up at the elbow whenever he wants to and knock that shot down. You know, he's shooting an incredible percentage on that shot. And that frees Devin Booker up. And Donovan Mitchell does not have that luxury. And Donovan Mitchell does not have somebody who can just go and score whenever he wants.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Casey Finlinson makes a great point. Again, Casey's on fire this morning. Does Ryan Smith, the new owner of the Jazz, have the impact that Mark Cuban had on the Mavs? Would Smith, because the Jazz historically have not been big players in big name trades.
No.
But this isn't the same old Jazz, or is it? I mean, that's the question. Because you're in position now to compete for an NBA championship. You are one player away. You are one elite player away. And you have the assets to go and get that player. Are you willing to do it?
I don't know. I don't, to be honest with you.
Huge question.
To be honest with you, Ryan Smith is such a new owner in the league that it's hard for me to say. Like with Cuban, we've known Cuban to be an aggressive guy. We've known Cuban to be a guy who likes to run his mouth and likes to be kind of boisterous about his opinions. So yeah, like I think Mark Cuban would do that, you know. But then, you know, with Ryan Smith, I don't know. Ryan Smith is a younger guy, and I would hope that would translate to, like we need to turn this thing into a championship winning organization. He specifically, I can't remember what game that was that they had him on. It was last week, like earlier in the week. But he had talked about how he wants to carry on the legacy of the organization and of LHM. And I think
what is that legacy though?
I don't know what that legacy is because we're far removed from the heyday of the Jazz. It's been a long time now.
That was the 90s.
It's 30 years now.
That was a different era.
Yeah.
And this current era of Jazz basketball is close but no cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And you have not drafted well. The Donovan Mitchell deal for Trey Lyles to Denver is really where things changed.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the way the Jazz have drafted, I mean, when's the last time they drafted a guy that you're like, whoo, this guy is making a difference right now? I mean, it's, dude, I'm going back like, I'm at 2015, and there's not an NBA level player that is impacting this Jazz roster that they got in the draft.
It's not good, dude.
I mean, we will fight over the Devin Booker year. Mm-hmm. We can fight we can go back to me and Kyle Gunther having a huge fight on the air about Dante Exum. That was a huge fight. I don't remember what sports bar we were at. We were at a sports bar the night that the Jazz drafted Dante Exum.
Uh-huh.
And I said repeatedly, this is a huge mistake.
Oh, sure. Of course I understand why people are upset.
Huge mistake.
Big mistake.
Oh, Gunther was like, no, you're an idiot. No, this is, and what did Dante Exum, all Dante Exum did was get hurt. Time and time again. Trey Lyles, huge mistake.
Mm-hmm. They drafted Gordon, didn't they?
What, in 1947?
I'm just telling you. You're asking me how far we got to go back. Hey.
Okay. Let's 2014 Dante Exum, Rodney Hood.
Oh, Rodney
2013 Shabazz Muhammad. Gorgie Dang.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Traded. Kevin Murphy. Enes Kanter and Alec Burks, 2011. Those two were major contributors to the Jazz at the NBA level for the Utah Jazz.
But seriously, come on.
2010 Gordon Hayward. So there you had Gordon, Alec Burks, and Enes Kanter.
You almost did it.
Almost did what?
Enes?
No, I didn't.
It sounded like it.
No. Enos rhymes with. Anyway, point is, other than that, let's not forget Costa Koufis. I mean, who could...
Who?
Costa... Morris Ullman, Ronnie Brewer. Oh, Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap was a really good pick.
He's been a solid NBA
1986.
player.
Yeah. No, 2006. Darren Williams.
Well, that might have been the last, Darren Williams was a savage, dude.
He was. And then he had to leave because he was such a savage.
Yeah.
But if you go up and down this list, there's just not, they rarely, if ever, win in the NBA draft.
Yeah.
And I just think, I hate to say it because Larry H. Miller, I think, changed the fortunes of this team. But my license plate says flu game, goddammit. Trust me, I know those series inside and out. And it was just not quite good enough.
Is this the dagger?
That strip of Karl Malone, that was a push-off.
Well, they didn't call it, so it's not.
It's only a speeding ticket if you get caught.
Yeah, man.
Right? I want this Jazz fans deserve a championship.
I didn't sleep for the past 2 nights because of this. I was that upset.
I mean, Friday night was a tough night. And the worst part is it plays to your insecurities. Holy cow, the Jazz are terrible in the draft.
Yeah.
And I've said that for years now.
Yes.
For years.
Yes, you have. And again, I feel like, so here's the thing. In terms of the show, and actually I do think it was Casey on Twitter on Friday who said this, maybe it was Saturday, but I do feel like that loss is kind of showing people that there is some vulnerability on this team. That, the 25-5 record was put together on some, on some teams that weren't 100%, and, there's some work to be done. Now, do I think the Jazz could beat the Clippers if they played them again? Absolutely. Yeah, I do think that they're more than capable of beating the Clippers.
I have no doubt about that.
But it's just a matter of, hey, in crunch time, who do we believe is going to make more shots? Who do we believe is going to get the better opportunities? And that really is the tough part.
The Lakers, if Anthony Davis plays again this year and doesn't wind up going KD on that Achilles, the Lakers are the best team in the NBA. I think the Clippers are number 2. Everybody's at 100%. We're playing a 7-game NBA Finals.
Yes.
Lakers 1, Clippers 2, Jazz 3.
Yeah.
That's how I would have it. Like, I don't see, like, the Phoenix Suns right now are the 4th best team in the Western Conference.
I'm not worried about them.
I'm not worried about
the Nuggets are the team that I'm worried about. They are the team I'm worried about.
Yeah. I look at the Nuggets are not playing good basketball.
And they're finding ways to win.
And they're getting superhuman performances to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Jokic and Murray are trading 50-point games. How does he score? What did he score the other night? 48 or 50 points without shooting a free throw?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm telling you, he's a problem.
we get it. We get it.
He's a problem.
But they lose. Like, I look at, here's the other question. Why on earth is Brad Stevens still a head coach in the NBA?
I have no idea.
At what point does somebody say the Boston Celtics are underachieving?
So the Boston Celtics are up 24 points on the Pelicans last night, right? They're up 24 points, 6 minutes left in the third quarter. You're like, all right, cool, we're coasting to this win, right? This is an easy win.
I don't think so.
Oh, wait, from the 6-minute mark in the third quarter to the end of the game, the Pelicans went on a 49-19 run to win the game in overtime. I don't know how he's still the head coach of the Boston Celtics. I don't know where the Boston Celtics are going because they're not going to win a championship because they're never beating the Nets. That's not happening. So not really sure where they're at. They're another team that's in no man's land versus a team, again, like the Jazz. At least the Jazz have, I feel like Quinn Snyder's done a great job this year, and he is getting accolades now, which is awesome. I think the Jazz have, for the most part, have earned their spot as the top team currently in the NBA. And I think that the Jazz have a lot of momentum on their side right now. But there are a lot of teams like the Celtics who are just in no man's land right now, and that's like the worst spot you could be in.
Yeah, I don't know. And Brad Stevens is one of those young gun coaches who was, he's got this relationship with Gordon Hayward from Butler. And
he was hot coming out of Butler.
Championship.
He was hot.
Look how attractive. Brad Stevens is a good-looking, nice man.
Here's the game plan.
We're going to fucking lose a lot. Right? Like, that's what their game plan's been.
How the fuck else would you do this stuff?
You've lost a lot. You've lost a lot. He's had really good talent.
My God.
They've made aggressive moves. You have a superstar in Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown's underachieving, in my opinion.
Oh, well, the problem is Jaylen Brown is Mr. Inconsistent.
Yes.
One night he's going to give you 40, and the next night he's going to give you like 10. And that's it. Like, that's who he's always been.
Yeah.
And what that says to me is there's a lack of development happening for the Celtics because Jason Tatum, what you noticed last year is Jason Tatum took like this huge leap forward, right?
Yep.
There was conversations about him potentially being able to push for an MVP bid in the next couple of seasons and doing all these great things. And now where are we? Well, he's putting up nice game tape. He's on the highlight reel, right? He's making tough shots, but he's not really turned into that like hardened level guy or that best of the best win a game for you guys.
What separates James Harden? What separates LeBron James? Their work ethic is through the roof.
Yeah.
Look at Devin Booker taking a step forward the last 2 years.
And he really has.
And what has changed? He went and worked with Chris Brickley. Mm-hmm. He went and put money into his skill. And I think guys like Jason Tatum, who's doing the same thing, and I think he's taken a big step forward this year. Mm-hmm. I think that's what separates guys. That's why Jaylen Brown's so inconsistent.
And Donovan does that.
Donovan absolutely is doing that. And that's why he's taken a huge step forward the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You can't just sit on your talent and think that's going to be good enough.
Yeah.
You've got to go get in those summer runs. Mm-hmm. You've got to get intensive one-on-one work with a coach. You have to. It's the only way you're going to improve.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I look across this league and I look at the teams that should be better. Like I can look at the Knicks and say, well, they're crappy because they have crappy ownership.
Right.
I can look at the Clippers and say, well, they were crappy until Steve Ballmer came in and bought every player.
I say I'm just fired up to be here today.
But you can't buy chemistry, right? Their chemistry sucks. I look at the Lakers. What did the Lakers do?
Yeah.
They went and sold out to LeBron James. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they drafted really well when they sucked, and they turned those draft picks and that talent into Anthony Davis.
Just huge.
By the way, why are the Jazz not winning? Because they don't draft well.
Yeah.
And they don't have a killer instinct in the front office and the ownership box.
Which I would say the Jazz share.
I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Notice
a team like the Warriors, why was their success so long? Well, because
Bro,
they drafted
we
well.
got to talk about Draymond Green.
Dude.
What are we doing? Like, looking at Draymond the other night, if you didn't see Draymond Green melt down and absolutely cost them that ball game,
Shame.
seriously, bro.
Dude, he cost them the game.
Seriously.
So if you didn't see it, end of the game versus Charlotte.
Against the Hornets.
Right, but the Hornets they will give you a good fight. I mean, they're completely beatable, and they turn the ball over like 30 times a game.
Granted, Steph was out. He got sick right before the game, so he didn't play. Not COVID.
Right, yeah.
So Steph didn't play in this game.
So basically, there's two guys rolling around on the floor, and Draymond is standing up by them watching this unfold. The officials blow the whistle and grant Charlotte a timeout. Draymond got upset because he didn't see the fact that another Charlotte player, can't remember, I think it was LaMelo on the floor, or I can't remember who it was on the floor for Charlotte, but another player standing up called a timeout.
All of them.
While the Charlotte player, the moment that they had possession.
Gordon and Draymond were rolling around for the basketball.
And I feel like it was Malik Monk who called the timeout standing up. And Draymond obviously didn't see that. And so Draymond was so upset to the point he's like berating the official. The official ejects him, which in the NBA means you got a double technical, which means the other team is going to get 2 free throws. This is where things got crazy. Terry Rozier steps up, hits both free throws, right? That means the game is tied. I believe it was tied at 1:30. Could be wrong, but they were tied. Then, timeout, Charlotte, gets the ball back. Scary Terry hits a 2 out of the corner to win the game. And we're just left sitting here like, dude, like, you guys were up 2. All you had to do is not care about all you had to do was not, like, abuse the official, and you would have won the game.
It started with confusion off the jump about who would jump the jump ball. Mm-hmm. And it got crazy because they allowed... I can't remember who the other player, but LaMelo Ball should have been jumping.
Yeah.
There was a jump ball before the Draymond Green thing.
Yeah.
And it was very clear that P.J. Washington
Yes.
and LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
So P.J. Washington's in the center circle, and so it took like 5 minutes to figure out LaMelo Ball should have been jumping. Then the jump ball happens, and it winds up in straight chaos. And when they finally throw the ball up, it gets batted around. Gordon Hayward's got the ball. Draymond Green dives on him.
Mm-hmm. Which is a great play in the moment. That's what he should have done.
It is, but everybody was calling timeout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody was calling timeout. P.J. Washington is literally standing right there calling timeout as soon as Gordon got the ball.
And the thing to remember while we're describing this, and you can go, and maybe you want to tweet this video so people can see it, but like you can go on YouTube and watch this video. But the thing here to understand is a lot of time with these jump ball situations, this like mosh of humanity happens under the basket. So it's really difficult to see who has possession and who doesn't, and like who's calling timeout and who's not. This particular situation happened essentially at mid-court.
It was clear as day.
It was wide open, clear as day, no questions asked. That the Hornets had called a timeout, and that's why Draymond looks like an idiot in this situation because he and I understand, Draymond is a player that is used to winning. He's used to playing on winning basketball teams, and that's not who the Warriors have been last year or this year. That's just not where they're at. With the Clay injury, with Steph being out, like that's just not where they are.
It's inexcusable. And if they have thought about trading him, and a lot of people have talked about this over the last 2 days, if the Warriors have thought about trading him, I would trade him now. You're likely not a playoff team, and if you make the playoffs, you're likely a first-round exit.
Yeah, didn't you say they're like vying for the 8th spot right now? Like they're in the 8th spot, but I mean, there's a long way to go.
It doesn't matter. They're in the 8th spot at 16 and 15 and a half game up on Memphis, a game and a half on Dallas.
Yeah,
it's irrelevant. The point is, if you have thought about trading Draymond Green, now's the time to do it, because I'm telling you, he is not a guy you want on a championship caliber team. And he's not a guy you want on a rebuilding team. He'd be fine in Chicago, where you're just going to languish.
I don't know, man. I think in the early years, like in with the first championship that the Warriors won, he was the core of that team, man. I mean, he was right in the middle of that thing.
When he is not being an idiot and getting technical fouls, and he gets a ton of technical fouls.
He loses his temper, there's no doubt.
When he is not being an idiot, he's a great basketball player.
Yeah.
You want that guy, his ability to run the break, his ability to outlet. He's one of the best outlet passers in the NBA.
He's straight up running their offense against Charlotte when Steph was out. I mean, that's the beauty of Draymond Green. But again, he's got a huge flaw where he is just constantly getting in trouble. Yeah.
What cost? Like it is not. Like Sean says, Draymond, in my opinion, was wrong in that situation. That's the understatement of the year.
Dude. Like the fact that you're in position to win the game, and then you get teed up and ejected, so you can essentially give Charlotte 2 free points to tie the game.
Come on.
And that's the thing, in late game situations, 2 points is huge. Because you go from having to essentially tie the game with a 2 or win it with a 3 to just any bucket wins you the game. And what does Scary Terry do? If you think about it, if you watch that game, which most people probably didn't, Terry Rozier scored like the last 12 points for the Hornets.
Well, because he doesn't pass.
Hot. But that's fine. Look, if it's going in, I don't care. We need points. Score. Fine. Great. Right?
Yeah.
Like, don't care. That's fine. But my point here is that it just shows a total lack of game awareness and a total lack of, like, putting the team first and getting the W first. And that's the most frustrating part.
Yeah, it's interesting. Barry says you're totally underselling Draymond Green. He makes any team an automatic championship contender based on experience alone.
I disagree with that, but
I don't think so.
He brings championship experience that doesn't make them an automatic championship team.
No, I would
There's
absolutely.
a big difference in that. LeBron makes any team an automatic championship caliber team.
Ben said, as usual, you guys have no idea what you're talking about with the Jazz. Next, you're going to say that Draymond should be traded to the Jazz. ... Right?
What have we been wrong on? Help me understand.
Yeah.
What have we been wrong on?
But that's my point. What we have been saying, that Rudy Gobert is a liability the last 5 minutes of a game, that the contract is going to limit their ability to fix that problem, and that as long as Rudy Gobert is your starting center and you got to pay him, and he's in the game the last 5 minutes, you're likely not going to win a championship.
I would love to hear from that person. What exactly, what do you disagree with? What have we been wrong on? Because we told you guys, and we keep telling you guys, that the Jazz are 1 player short against the best teams in the league. The Jazz are not going to shoot 40% from 3 every single game in the postseason. No team is doing that.
No.
That's not just a Jazz problem. No team in the NBA is doing that. And so where the Jazz have a problem is that they're counting on making those threes to be in games. That's the issue.
Ben says you guys have also said that Jordan Clarkson only shoots. You've said that he can't be an answer late in games because he's not a team player, which is complete garbage. Look at the other night. Well, I did look at the other night. He wasn't in the game for most of the last 5 minutes.
Where was he against the Clippers? I know the game this guy's talking about. Yeah. Where Jordan Clarkson went off? Sure. Yeah, he can go off. But here's the thing. And this is what you need to be accountable to in these comments. You don't want to talk about the fact that when they're playing a fully healthy Clippers team or a Lakers team, or they're playing games that actually matter, they're not playing these average-ass run-of-the-mill teams in the NBA. When they're playing teams that are really good, Jordan Clarkson isn't there. He goes away, mainly because those teams have elite on-ball defenders. Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. They have all these guys. Even Morris can play great individual defense. So our point is not that they can't score or that Jordan Clarkson or that Jordan Clarkson, we're trying to limit him. The point is that he disappeared. Great, you can do it against average-ass teams. Awesome. Do it against the best team so we can win the game.
And the bigger issue is in today's game in the NBA where everybody switches everything, the Clippers don't have to worry about personnel on the floor. Nope. They don't have to get Rudy out. They don't have to get, Pat Beverley out.
And by the way, it should be said, the Clippers have no problem beating you up with their fouls, too. Patrick Beverley, no problem swatting you in the face, right? None of these guys have any problem. Outside of Paul George, because he's kind of soft. Kawhi Leonard, no problem. He'll beat you up with his fouls. He will.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, I could go on and on about this. I will just simply say that there are trades to be had in the NBA, and the Jazz should make one. Mm-hmm. The Jazz should. Somebody's going to get Bradley Beal.
They should bolster their roster. There's no doubt.
Somebody's going to get Bradley Beal. It's a matter of how unemotional can you be as a Jazz fan to let go of a Royce O'Neal, a Bogdanovich, a Joe Ingles.
Because that's the scorer you need.
Because that's who's going to have to go for you to get somebody. You either want to win a championship or you want to be emotional and hang on to guys.
Because right now, and this is my honest opinion, and probably most people disagree, right now they're good enough to get to the finals. They're not good enough to win the finals, right? They're good enough to find a way.
I don't think they are good enough to go to the finals.
I could see, not consistently, but I could see a situation where they're able to figure it out in a 7-game series. Most times they'll lose, but I could see that one year.
If the Lakers and Clippers are healthy, the Jazz are not going to the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, what if they run into Denver in the second round?
Well, hey, you know where I'm at with Denver.
I mean, Denver's a nightmare matchup for them. Mm-hmm. The Lakers and Clippers healthy are a nightmare matchup for them because they can't guard those guys. Anyway, I'll stop. I want to talk about power companies in Dallas. I do.
We know how Dak's going to get paid. We know.
Jerry Jones is among these, and I think Casey Finlinson is the one who sent me this article the other day, Thursday or Friday. But I want to talk about these power companies because it's becoming an epidemic. In the last week, people have gotten so screwed by power companies that they're now posting their electric bills online. And they're between $3,000 and $17,000 for 1 week of electricity. Your average bill went from $200 to $300 to between $6,000 and $8,000.
How, bro?
Because they raised their kilowatt per hour charge to make money during one of the worst natural disasters Texas has ever seen. And when we talk about the abdication of leadership with Ted Cruz, this is where it comes back to roost. Because when you start reaching into the average Texan's pocket and you're asking him for a $10,000 bill, that's when things are going to get serious.
And he will every single time.
Thank you. My point is, guys like Ted Cruz, and everybody said, well, he's in Mexico. He can do the same thing.
Whoa. It's not Ted Cruz. It's Cancun Cruz.
Oh, excuse me. Cancun Ted, who wound up on vacation during the worst natural disaster, probably of his generation, was asleep at the wheel while guys like Jerry Jones, who owns a power company, are sending Texans bills for $17,000. Scott Willoughby, a 63-year-old Army veteran who lives on Social Security payments, told the New York Times that he wiped out his savings account to pay a $16,752 electric bill that Houston-based Gritty charged him for the month of February.
Dude.
There's nothing I can do about it, but it's broken me, Willoughby said. Houston resident David Astreen, who lost power twice during rolling blackouts, told the Washington Post that despite working to keep usage down, his electric bill for the month, also with Gritty, $4,697. And these stories just go on and on and on. The Texas Public Utility Commission approved a pair of orders directing energy companies to temporarily halt disconnections due to non-payment and stop sending bill estimates to customers. Where's Ted Cruz? That's my question. Because it came out again over the weekend, and Ted Cruz's explanation for going to Texas, mind you, was that, oh, well, my daughters wanted to get away. Mm-hmm. Well, then why did you pay for your college roommate to go to Texas, to go to Cancun with you, Ted? Why did you invite your neighbors, Ted?
And by the way, if it was just your daughters, why didn't they just go? Why did you have to go?
Well, because, Jake, he was being a responsible dad and escorting his daughters down. This is the argument that Dick Ted Cruz made. Oh, well, it was my daughters wanting to get away. So like any responsible father, I went and escorted them to Mexico, and then I came right back.
Let's go somewhere.
Yet, what do we know now? Because United Airlines employees were so pissed that you left them in Texas high and dry that they leaked your itinerary that you were going to be there for a week and that you got on a standby list so you could get back the next day. So you weren't there to escort your daughters and be this great dad, right? You were there to get away from what was going on in Texas.
Simple as that.
And people want to defend that. There's no defending sending an Army veteran who lives on Social Security payments a $7,000 electric bill.
Yeah, there's not. And Ted's not doing anything about it. And I think that's it. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that he's going to really be held accountable.
What I find is interesting is now what all these bills have done is they've sparked a movement to stop all electric bills and forgive every electric bill due for the month of February. And it's a legitimate, real, like Governor Abbott of Texas has talked about this.
Well, I don't think that's out of the question. I mean, that's not, it's, again, and this is something that got talked about in the presidential election. Like, people should not be punished for something that is out of their control that they can't do anything about. I mean, you can't do anything about the fact that, you know, you lost your job because of the pandemic. Like, you can't do anything about the fact that the pipes in the ground froze so you don't have electricity.
But it's not but see, and maybe people don't understand this. Do you understand why Texas is in the situation they're in?
Wow.
Their power grid is independent.
Yeah.
Which means they do not share power with or get power from any other state. Texas has its own power infrastructure. So they don't have federal regulation. So when they went independent, it was recommended they insulate all of their natural gas pipeline in the state of Texas.
Did they do that?
They did not do that because they didn't want to incur the cost, right? So the biggest issue in Texas, and everybody wanted to tell you it was wind turbines freezing. It wasn't wind turbines freezing. It was natural gas pipeline that froze because the pipes were not insulated. That's what happened. The electrical infrastructure is not set up for sub-zero temperatures or sub-freezing temperatures, excuse me. It's not set up. But there's no federal regulators in Texas for the energy because they're independent. They have their own grid. And I'm telling you now, that's why we have the issues we have in Texas.
Yeah.
And I find it unconscionable that somebody like Jerry Jones, who's a billionaire, can turn around and go and gouge customers in Texas.
He's killing his community, literally.
But hey, let's hope we sell out so we can afford to pay DAC.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and raise those season ticket prices.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You know, I hope that they do forgive every electric bill.
I agree completely. It should be done.
I'm still frustrated by it. I just can't even. I mean, do you have that, man? There are people who are dying.
Don't care.
Do you understand that people froze to death in their beds because they had no power to heat? They froze to death. Children froze to death in their beds. I am not being sensational. Go read about it. Children froze to death in their beds. The elderly froze to death in their beds. People died because they were heating their homes with their cars. People died because they were in garages freezing to death, so they went and got in their car to heat themselves up and died of carbon monoxide poisoning. That's where we're at in Texas. And you want to gouge people for their electric and heat bills. I am amazed by it. I am amazed by it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying a lot because I just agree with you. Like I think that this is classic. Hey, rich are going to get richer on the poor being poor, and I think that is, as much as that is an awful thing to say. Like that is our country. Like that is in the simplest of terms how our country works, and it's awful. It's terrible.
Jeremiah says, "Do you have any thoughts on Mike Lee fundraising with the Trump crowd in Florida?" Yeah, how about a huge Florida fundraiser for Mike Lee? Like, I don't understand why we as everyday Americans put up with this. I don't.
Because just what is the average person on their own going to do? That's what they say to themselves. What are they going to do?
I want to. If I could reach you right now, I would smash you.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
It's
I'm just
not
telling you that's
one person who matters.
That's how people view it.
It's a collective.
I get it.
It drives me crazy that, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe you don't believe this.
No,
okay,
no,
fine.
I'm not. You're mishearing me here.
Every
I'm not
one
saying
of
that.
every one of you a-hole millennials.
I'm not
who
saying
are like,
that, dude.
I know, I get it.
Like,
you're saying that other people say.
Yeah.
And this is why I say to you all the time on this show, millennials will make or break our future.
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree with you. So many millennials believe, well, my one vote doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does, dick, because it's your one vote that turns into hundreds of thousands and millions of votes that eventually wind up changing the way we do business in Utah. And if you can't understand that California is a cesspool of my one vote don't matter, so I'm not going to do anything. So we wind up in bureaucracy and overregulation and taxes, and you're so taxed in California that athletes don't want to move there to play for your teams because it costs them so much money that they won't go there. That's where you're at because so many people haven't historically voted. Look at voter turnouts. We're lucky if we get to 60% voter turnout. 40% of Americans don't vote. Oh, because my vote doesn't matter. It does matter. We're talking about the rest of our lives. And the other thing that I think people forget about, it's not just about what's going on today. Like eventually, if you ever, lose your virginity, you're going to have kids. So what we're doing today is going to impact. Okay, so your friends will have kids because you're never having sex again. But anyway, the point is, it's future generations that are being destroyed today, right? It's going to Mars because we don't want to get rid of methane gas in this world.
All gas, no brake.
Because we want farting cows more than we want to live forever. Right? Like, this is what I don't understand. We can't look past what's right in front of us today to understand that we can't just let Breonna Taylor be murdered in her apartment because some guy told some guy that some guy had some guy in there and stuff. That's essentially what the warrant said.
Some guy.
We can't get past what's happening right in front of our faces today.
Oh.
So when you say, oh, well, what's the big deal about Mike Lee going to Florida for a fundraiser? Because who cares what Floridians want for Utah? What about Utah? What in Utah and stuff? How about we do for us? Right? But no, we get the puppet Mike Lee, doing his thing. And he'll be there forever because that's what politicians do. It's not what politicians do. It shouldn't be what politicians do. And
but
it drives me crazy that people will bitch about politics and then not go out and vote because their vote doesn't matter. It does matter. What if the 40% actually showed up and voted? Does anybody want to go to Georgia and talk about what's happening in Georgia right now? So many people who hadn't voted, Ms. Abrams and her coalition turned out so many black Georgians to vote that now they are trying to put in laws in Georgia to prevent black Georgians from voting.
We're only here for one reason.
To make sure that as few people vote as possible so we can stay in power for the rest of our lives. Do you see that in Georgia? That they're putting in restrictions so people cannot vote by absentee ballot, cannot vote by mail ballot, you got to have 17 forms of ID that only rich people who are white and sit on the boards of multiple companies can afford.
Here's the game plan.
Right? We are trying so hard in so many states in this country to restrict people's ability to vote so that the millionaire, billionaire white guy can stay in power. But you're not going to go out and vote because your one vote doesn't matter.
Yep.
Come on. If you're a Utah resident and you see that Mike Lee is in Florida for a big fundraiser with the Trump camp, that doesn't worry you at all? Like, that doesn't say to you, hey, what are you doing in Florida?
I think the thing here is that the other side doesn't have a good enough candidate to incentivize people.
Yeah.
So people are going to take the good with the bad, essentially.
Yeah, Mike Lee drives me crazy.
The problem is that as much as Mike Lee is pretty much an awful human being, at the same time, there's not another Joe Biden. It wasn't going to
Who's coming behind him?
Who? What are the other options? There aren't other options. So Mike Lee might be an awful person, but at least he does X, Y, and Z or whatever. I mean, that's really the logic.
But look at what there were poll numbers out yesterday that showed that half of Republicans said they would follow Donald Trump if he starts a new political party. Half said they would follow him. This is where we are as a country. We've gotten to a place as a country where Senator Mike Lee, on the record, tells the Deseret News that, I was here for this phone call. Here's how it happened. This is what I saw. Here's what I did. Okay, thanks. All right, we'll see you down the line when I need the media to get reelected and stuff. And then that gets out, and it gets brought up in the trial of Donald Trump, his second impeachment trial, because we impeach people twice all the time, right? Anyway, in his second impeachment trial, and Mike Lee's like, I never said that. That's a lie.
Those statements are not true, and I ask that you cite them.
Oh, my God. Well, then why did you and your communications director tell the Deseret News that? Because now it is actually a weapon to insult the media and lie about what you said to the media, because the media is, full of losers and liars and stuff.
I personally would like an apology.
It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's
That's
amazing.
Politics. That's where we're at.
My Pillow. The My Pillow guy.
What a douche.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Mike Lindell.
Mike Lindell for you got to say pillow right. Mike Lindell for My Pillow. You got to drag the O. My Pillow. Getting sued for billions by Dominion, along with Rudy Giuliani, who, by the way, now all of a sudden doesn't work for Donald Trump anymore. Right? It's Donald Trump turning Mar-a-Lago into a private club where people cannot live full time so that he can save money on his taxes, which we don't get to see. Then he wants to go live there full time.
But wait, he's going to release his taxes when the audit's done, right?
Right. Sure he won't. But now he wants to go live there full time, so those rules don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Are you serious? It's the state of New York. You knew the kind of prick that Donald Trump was long before he ever was even on The Apprentice. Oh, but now you've stopped doing business with him, so we're going to close those ice rinks that are funded by the Trump Organization because we don't want to be seen to be in cahoots with the Trump Organization. Mm-hmm. Do you really think closing ice rinks makes a damn bit of difference to anybody?
No.
Nope. Right? I just am amazed by the hypocrisy in this country. We should stop. Are you buying Bitcoin, Jake?
No, I'm not.
Bitcoin's at 54.
It's a little too late.
Bitcoin's at 54. Mm-hmm. And people can't get enough of Bitcoin.
We see this every 6 months, man.
Everybody's asking me about Bitcoin. I am not, by the way. I am not a financial advisor. Please do not take my advice. We talk about stocks occasionally on this show. Mm-hmm. I broke even on AMC, thank God. But I do small bits and pieces of stock trading. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, hey, what do you think of this one?
What would I do without you?
Like people send me direct messages. They're like, hey, what do you think of this stock? There's these two guys who are developing a next generation radar detector in their garage.
Excellent strategy, sir.
That's from The Wolf of Wall Street. Anyway, so Bitcoin, I've probably gotten 10 people asking me if I'm going to buy Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin, but lost the blockchain password thing. I spent $500 on it like 5 years ago. I'd be a millionaire now, and I wouldn't be sitting here wasting my time talking to Jake every morning. But, but I am because I didn't know how Bitcoin worked. But it's at 54 now, and no, I'm not buying Bitcoin at 54. No. It is interesting to me that so many people are like, oh, Bitcoin, I'm getting in on Bitcoin. Do you know how to get in on Bitcoin? If you are a 20-something millennial, okay, you want to put $1,000 into Bitcoin and hope for the best, okay. Mm-hmm. If you're a 50-year-old trying to grow your retirement, please don't get into Bitcoin. Please don't. It is not a wager. If you get into Bitcoin now and you spend any kind of your 401k or your retirement savings on Bitcoin, you're going to lose. If you're a 20-something millennial who's got $1,000 sitting around that you're probably going to blow on the new PS17 or like the new Xbox, take your Xbox money and put it on Bitcoin. Okay, I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. But if it's at all leverage cash that you need to survive or to pay your mortgage or do anything else, please do not put your money on Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Because it is not a smart, safe, or wise investment on any level whatsoever. And here's the test. Do you have any idea how Bitcoin is made, how it rises and falls? Do you have any idea why Bitcoin is volatile? Do you have any idea how it got to 54? You don't. It got to 54 similarly to how GameStop went through its thing because some famous people invested in it, and it's cool to say you own Bitcoin. It's like this Dogecoin. Everybody's like, oh, Dogecoin. It's got a cute little dog as a mascot. Let's do this.
It's not fucking real.
It's not real. Guy, you can't buy a house with Bitcoin unless you really know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You can't buy a house. You can't walk into a house.
You can't get a tank of gas. Buy a house.
Yeah,
I mean, the house. You can't even buy anything with it yet.
If you know what you're doing, Bitcoin's real. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, if you're trying to double your money, don't do it on Bitcoin. If you're trying to put 10 G's into Bitcoin, you better understand that 10 G's is pretty much out the window. Once you send that money to your virtual wallet company, it's over. It's over. By the way, I'm watching Bridgerton. Or I watched Bridgerton.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So we're sitting on the couch the other day playing hockey. And Mrs. Monty is watching Bridgerton, which is a XXX show. No, I'm not. I'm kidding. So we're talking to Mrs. Monty about sex on Bridgerton. And she's like, well, it's not as bad as Game of Thrones.
What's an erection?
The very next sex scene on Bridgerton is the main couple of the show. And the guy apparently was hungry because, I mean, he went to the Y for the buffet.
I gotta say, I'm just fired up to be here today.
You know, it is a show that's not based in sex, but it has sex in it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I actually think it's an entertaining show. Mm-hmm. I do. And you know what's cool about it? It's, as my wife likes to say, it's a period piece. It's set in like the 1200s. No, it's like set in the 1800s. It's like, old London, mm-hmm. old England.
Yeah, you can romanticize it, yep.
Yeah, but it's modern. And so they allow black actors and actresses to play critical roles in society, mm-hmm. which in 1800s England was not ever even real.
Right.
I like that it's a period piece that's progressive and modern, mm-hmm. and it's actually got good plot lines that you can follow pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's the one gripe I have about Game of Thrones is that you can't follow it very easily.
Yeah, you really got to watch it.
Yeah, you got to watch it from front to back to get it. Bridgerton was pretty good. And I thought it was cool the way they said it's coming back. The last frame of the last episode basically says, hey, there's going to be another season.
Yeah.
And you can follow the plot line pretty easily.
Yeah, so, I think that Netflix is brilliant with all the shows that they put out and the stuff that they do. Yeah. It's been game-changing, and I think it's just amazing to me how they, it's like one show after another. I mean, first we're talking about the Elisa Lam thing. Now we're talking Bridgerton. Like, I mean, there's just all kinds of...
The what thing?
Elisa Lam.
What is that?
The girl who died in the tank on top of the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Bro.
Oh, well, fuck, man.
Dude,
I haven't
she
thought about
died
that girl
in a
since that show
tank
got
on
turned
the
off.
roof, and you forgot about the show.
Oh, my God. What show was that on Netflix? Or was that Netflix? Yes. What show was it?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah, whatever.
I just don't like. I just don't understand. Like, why do we care so much about death? Why do we want to? Like, she killed herself, man. She got into a water tank on top of a hotel because she was bipolar and off her meds.
There was a demon that carried her up there and drowned her. We all know that.
And raised the 50-pound lid off the water tank. Come on, man. This is not like. Netflix is killing it.
Yeah.
By the way, I do find myself. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mike wants to know if I swap happiness for TV shows. Yes. I'm married. I do that daily. Man, it's why I watch stupid shows about DNA and family trees and stuff. Like, because there's, it's currency. Bridgerton's a really good show.
Okay.
You should watch it.
All right.
Well, I won't. Tell me you didn't watch shows. Why did you wind up watching Selling Sunset? Well, because I wanted to get laid.
No, it's actually a pretty good show.
Oh, stop.
I thought it was a good show. We watched a lot of episodes, bro.
How come you're not watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake City?
That's just a terrible show.
That's an
awful show.
That's a trashy show.
That's a terrible show.
Oh, my God.
Garbage.
Oh, my God. HBO Max. Yes, I have HBO Max. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I've watched every episode. One of the ladies on that show lives like 3 blocks.
Yeah, and we drove. I was going to bring that up. But
we drove by Whitney's house. Yes, we did. Yes, because she lives in Daybreak, where all the cool kids live.
Okay.
Make sure you search Google. Get on the old Google machine. Search The Monty Show. Monty, The Monty Show. Ooh! Breaking Donald Trump tax return news. Supreme Court says that we're allowed to see his tax return.
Let's go.
I like it. The Monty Show. Monty, The Monty Show on the old Google machine. Until tomorrow, say the audit's over, Jake.
The audit's over, Jake.